America! This was the scene at Justin Herman Plaza this morning as pro-China and pro-Tibet protesters clashed 4 hours before the Olympic torch relay was set to begin. The scene was repeated along the torch route just about an hour later at Pier 39, where private security agents and San Francisco police are working to keep the peace.
They weren't intentionally going away from the protesters. They just want to do it in the safest fashion. So apparently this seems to be the safest way to do it, which I think everyone would be in agreement with.
And here we go, police presence surrounding the first 2 runners of the first leg of this torch run. We can see right now about 8 motorcycle police officers, perhaps 10, on either side of the 2 runners, as well as 2 bicycle cops right there. At Bush and Van Ness. They are joined, though, moment by moment, by more police officers on motorcycles, on foot, and those guardians of the Olympic torch, the men wearing blue that travel with the torch, the Chinese, many believe to be paramilitary troopers who have training to react under any circumstance, however difficult, and looks like today, everybody had a bit of a surprise. And now we know where all the extra officers went.
Height between about 185 and 210 pounds. They've trained in Taekwondo and other martial arts and have been running between 25 and 35 miles a day in preparation for this. They have no law enforcement powers, but they have had some brushes with the protesters and even with some police in other cities, I understand. And they are there not only to escort the torch, but to make sure that the torch is held high. So they're constantly urging people who carry the torch to keep it high. I mean, it's a personal embarrassment if it falls on that segment of the run.
Well, here we go. And if by chance you're just joining us, take a moment here just to kind of recap the situation. A lot of things have happened since we first went on the air. Initially, the torch run was going to be held down the Embarcadero, go up into Fisherman's Wharf, Jefferson Street, Bay Street, come back on Bay Street and end in Justin Herman Plaza. What they have done now is just completely redone the course route and moved it without warning at the last second to Van Ness near Pine. Let's go back to Sal now. Sal, you hearing any more about the route, what they're going to do?
Yes, I am. The police said that the torch run has officially started, and now they're saying they want it to speed up. They're giving instructions to their officers to move it along. It stopped here. They want it to go quicker.
Let me ask you something. When we were just checking in with our reporter, Jenna Katsuyama, she's there on the ground at Justin Herman Plaza, thousands of people hoping to see the end of the torch relay, the closing ceremonies there. She mentioned that people were being led into that arena, but that those people were handpicked by the Chinese consulate. If that is the case, I mean, if we're talking about orchestrating here, the protesters, activists have their, sort of way of doing things, and then you have to realize that if people are being handpicked to cheer and clap, then that's another avenue.
Yes, they're going to have to, anytime that you have this kind of a phenomenon, there's greater and greater pressure to micromanage every single aspect of it. And to the extent that you do that, then it really begins to raise the issue of, is it worth it? Are we defeating the very purpose that we're trying to establish with the torch run by the processes that we have to go through in order to make it happen? And I think
a group gathering again. Now that is the intersection of Bryant and the Embarcadero. Possibly from the camera you have a better view of what's going on right down there. But this protest all morning long has been very fluid, marching up and down the Embarcadero. A few skirmishes between the anti and pro-Chinese groups, but nothing more than a little pushing and shoving.
Clearly, they are well outnumbered by the pro-Tibet people. We do see a number of Chinese flags, as you see, the red ones along the route, along the fences here. And there is a little bit of back and forth, but for the most part, we're seeing mostly pro-Tibet people in the street.
Anybody there, Dan, that just wants to see the torch come by, or is it just all protesters?
Right now, all we're seeing are the pro-Tibet protesters. There have been no torch coming by, just the pro-Tibet people. And I have to tell you, an hour ago, there was nobody in the streets. And then suddenly, once they closed down the street about noon, there were a few more people. And then about 1 o'clock, it just completely filled up with the pro-Tibet people.
All right, Dan, we'll check back with you later. We want to turn now to Vicki Liviakis. She's
keeping us from surging forward, or keeping the spectators from surging forward. They've not told us to move. I think they're just kind of creating a channel for the bus and the torch runners to go by.
All right, again, John, what we're hearing now is that they'll go on to Bay and then go to the Golden Gate Bridge, where eventually shuttles will transport them to Justin Herman Plaza for the big closing ceremony. But that is subject to change, of course, as we've seen today. There have been many changes already.
Yeah, we can see the flag that you were talking about, John, right now, over to the right of the screen from Sky 7, and people are starting to move very quickly now, it looks like on the side, and a little bit of shouting. I don't know if you can hear it from where you are.
A little bit of shouting. I believe I heard Free Tibet. There's a large banner unfurled which says Free Tibet 2008. Was blocked for a while by some trucks. Two banners that say Free Tibet. So obviously we can figure out by now that the motorcade is heading west on Bay.
Right, and you can see, we can see from our vantage point where they really closed up around the big torch. The police really closed the net around them to give them a lot more protection now that the protesters are catching up to where they are. High-tech protests now through blogging and texting, and our viewers following the helicopter.
But right now, we're stopping the traffic, but I expect to run. There's only 3 more torchbearers in front of me. You need on this bus. They have all the torches here laid out for us and kind of instructing us what to do. But like I said, I should be running in about 5 minutes from now.
We're looking at our ground torch cam right now where we're seeing one of the Tibetan supporters waving his flag.
You can see this yellow bus. It's in that area right now, and now a number of, as you can see, officers on bikes in the area.
And John, just in the last few minutes, would you say the crowd has grown considerably?
Yes, I would. Several hundred here at this intersection. Again, I would say 10, 15 in some areas, perhaps 20 deep of other people, protesters holding signs. I don't hear much shouting at this point.
You know, it's interesting, when we first saw the first torchbearers, they were waving and smiling, and now, I think because of the noise, I don't know, it's hard to tell because I'm not on the ground, their faces are they're registering a little bit of tenseness from where we're sitting. But they're coming toward you, they're turning a corner now, so you should be able to see them.
And there's the flame right now, taking a left-hand turn on Bay from Van Ness.
It's, you know, mixed emotions. I have really, really strong opinions about China and what they're doing. And, you know, I've been to Southeast Asia, and it's really, really difficult to be proud of what China's done. But then on the other hand, the Olympics is a wonderful thing.
Great, well, thanks so much. There goes, look, there's a torch going by right now. As you can see, dozens of police officers, protesters are now here.
And Katie, we saw a little pushing there by police when one of the protesters carrying a Tibetan flag got into the street, possibly too close, they consider, to the torch runner.
Yeah. Another event that drew hundreds to that famed span. KTV's Jay Hernandez live there now with more. Jay.
Well, that's right, Garcia. The march scheduled for the Golden Gate Bridge pulled in a little more than 500 people, and those who walked said that they wanted their message big and nonviolent. And to ensure that, the California Highway Patrol made their presence known along the 1.7 miles on the Golden Gate Bridge. California Highway Patrol officers arrived on motorcycles and in packs. Their job to keep the peace. The officers checked bags and backpacks, and they made sure signs were small enough or without wooden holders. The Buddhist Peace Fellowship sponsored this march. They expected at least 500 people to join in the walk across the Golden Gate Bridge today, just a few hours before the torch run through the city. The peaceful protesters held signs in protest against the Chinese government and the oppression of the Burmese people.